Welcome to the World Movers Podcast. I'm your host, DJ Angelfire, with my co-host, Noah, aka the 51st Citizen. And today we have our guest, DietTeaOtherCola, otherwise known as Harmony. And they make a variety of very interesting, crazy electronic music on their Instagram page. They also have an album out on Spotify. Harmony, would you like to kick this off and just give us, the basic description and how you got into all this?
Yeah. Thank you for that plug right off top. That's amazing. Now everybody can stop listening. Everybody can pause right now and go check out my album and then come back so they know what we're talking about. Yeah. I mean, I've been making music for a long time. I periodically scrub the internet of all of my it feels like every few years I look back on it and I'm just like, everything I've done is so cringy and so shitty, but what I'm doing now is the thing. So I delete everything but that. That's kind of what DietTeaOtherCola was. I recently purged the internet of a lot of recent music I made and started doing the DietTeaOtherCola thing. The song A Day just came about because there's this graphic designer called Beeple. I don't know if y'all know. He's incredible. And I watched this video where he was talking about uploading something every day for 12 years. He seems a lot more religious about it than I intend to be. He was like, I've never skipped a day, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, man, I'm going on vacation at the end of the week and I'm pretty sure I'm not going to post for 10 days and I'm fine with it. But, yeah, well, DietTeaOtherCola, I always want to be making kind of the antithesis of the music I am making. Sometimes I'm making electronic music, and the more I make electronic music, every time I hear a punk band, fuck, I should be making punk. And then every time I'm in a punk band and I hear electronic, I'm like, I should really do something more like that. So DietTeaOtherCola, I was like, so it's real eclectic.
The interesting thing, just right off the bat, talking about your music and how what you're doing, putting out a track a day, it reminds me a lot of kind of what Noah's been doing, especially when he first started out, just posting these wild, crazy tracks. And, I see a lot of potential in him, and I think that, there's something freeing about just being able to put whatever the hell you feel like making out there. Because I'm the type of person that spends hours working on something and never releases it, so...
Yeah, it's the yin and the yang of productivity.
It's also, that's equally a pitfall. There's many things. I have whole albums and everything that are basically done, but I don't feel like they're done, and so I've never released them. That makes sense. I did, obviously, when speaking with the both of you and meeting both of you, I looked into your stuff. I did notice that, Noah, you do have it seems like you have kind of a hyper concentrated focus and a pretty big output. When I Googled you, there were just quite a few albums and stuff that came out. I like that. I can't recall the title of the release that you did, but you wrote parenthetically, instead of full album or whatever, or full mixtape, you wrote full musical. I thought that was tight as fuck. I read that and I was like, that's dope, full musical. So then I listened to that. I didn't listen to the entire thing, but I listened to it and I went into it imagining it as a score with it, or movements rather. And I was like, oh, this is tight. And I think it really affected my experience listening to that.
Damn. Well, I really appreciate that.
Oh yeah, of course.
And, bringing up that specific example, bullfight, I think,
bullfight,
it is interesting that, just a simple little thing like calling it a musical versus an album. And, with a lot of artists in the past couple of years, there's been a lot of sort of behind-the-scenes politics around whether you're calling it a mixtape or an album playlist or that sort of thing.
Let's all talk about this right now. What is the distinction there? Is it what is? I don't understand what the distinction between those things is. A mixtape and an album. Is an album what just typically? In my mind, is an album has more commercial backing. I feel like that's more kind of the official definition of an album in the music industry, is that there's some sort of commercial backing, whereas a mixtape is kind of just something that the artist does of their own volition. But I don't even know.
From what I've heard, it's basically a legal distinction that basically, with rappers in particular, like Young Thug didn't put out his debut album until I'm trying to think, when was it was 2017, I want to say, even though he had put out like at least a dozen mixtapes before that.
Right. Well, it's like Chance too. You know, Chance came out with his debut album. It flopped totally. It was like terribly received and everything, but he built a career off the mixtapes. Yeah, like Young Thug too. Interesting. I didn't know Young Thug also did that. That makes sense though.
Yeah, Young Thug has a lot of mixtapes out, but I think what it is, I think the reason they do it, and a lot of these rappers do it, particularly rappers signed to big labels and things, is that you're not legally required to compensate producers in the same way. I think if it's I don't know the exact like legal loopholes that have to do with that, but I think that was also part of the reason behind when Drake put out, I can't remember the name of this one either, unfortunately, but instead of an album, he called it a playlist.
Oh yeah, that's even like slightly more meta. You're like,
yeah,
this is just some songs that I curated.
Yeah.
This isn't even me.
Yeah, that's basically DJ Khaled's whole career.
Yo, DJ Khaled, I didn't realize. So yeah, I was watching. As much as I love Anthony Fantano, I didn't really start like following him or anything until like probably like the past year. But I think he has some pretty insightful things to say. And, you know, he was like railing against DJ Khaled. And, you know, DJ Khaled at one point, he was definitely like a hard worker who did some measure of things. But now he's just kind of like this entrepreneur who just gets any amalgamation of like pop stars and like has them make a track together. But he's like virtually beyond that. He's like not involved. He doesn't do shit. He's just like the kid whose house it's chill to smoke weed at. Like,
it's like an Andy Warhol kind of figure in a sense.
Yeah. Yo, speaking of Andy Warhol, I'm going to New York at the end of the week. And, my partner and I are renting this fucking Airbnb, and she showed me pictures, and it's like literally like Andy Warhol themed. There's this big Andy Warhol quote like painted in mural style above the fucking bed, and the bed has a bunch of like reproductions of his prints as like the pillows and shit. I was like, this is so fucking funny. Like, I used to stay there.
Obsessive focus on any artist, whatever it is always, or any figure. It doesn't even have to be an artist. It's funny, like especially when it's some guy that you've never heard of, like some colonial era soldier or something, and it's just everything's dedicated to him, and it's like, bro, nobody knows who this is. This isn't just me.
You're like, I dedicated my life to my favorite ventriloquist.
This was kind of interesting and not at all related to anything, but talking about the Airbnb reminded me, recently I had the opportunity to hang out with a friend of the podcast, Lord VZA, up in LA for a while. And we were basically staying in these mansions. The house that we stayed at, mansion we stayed at, there was literally a dungeon under the garage. And, you know, we looked at it from like, because it was like, okay, so you go in the garage, secret doors, you open the doors, and then there's a staircase down into this enclosed room. There's all bricks, and then there's like a bed and a dresser from the 70s, and just a hole right in the middle of the ground.
Yeah, I hear dresser from the 70s, and I'm like, yeah, it was filled with like vintage like sex toys and like weird lubes.
No idea. It was either that or a torture dungeon, or maybe both.
Or did you not? You didn't delve deeper?
Oh no.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're not mutually exclusive for sure. For sure, those two things have some overlap in the Venn diagram.
Well, because the whole house looked like a Colombian coke dealer's mansion. So I'm like, you know, I don't know. Man, there's some strange places to stay out here in California.
There's some cool architecture out there. Some of them, because it's all so recent, but then, you know, a lot of it has like that crazy. I don't know why I'm speaking like I'm from California or something. I chilled in California for like 2 weeks once when I was like 18. I'm talking like I know it, but it did. I don't know. It had an impact. Like I definitely remember shit like that. Like I remember being like, oh whoa, there's like this weird retro building next to like a Victorian style house. Like especially in like San Francisco, there was like a weird mishmash of like architecture like that, because it seemed like California especially was a place where like by the time it was like really settled and everything, and they started like, we had reached kind of like a contemporary point where architecture became more artsy. Where it's like, like all the shit, like living on the East Coast, like, no, I'm sure you can empathize. I don't know where on the East Coast you live, but like, the East Coast, like the architecture here is just like the most utilitarian dog shit looking. Everything is so drab and gray. It's fucking terrible. And not to say there's totally fucking like subdivisions in like Southern California and the Southwest are just like adobe houses, like basically 3D printed one after another. I don't even dislike that. I think that's kind of beautiful. It's kind of like unraveled DNA or something.
I mean, it's the kind of architecture that's around here is just, I've been overexposed to it, so whatever beauty is lying in it, I just can't see it. Maybe somebody else could, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah, but I'm also, I imagine, like disillusioned in the same way that you are. My parents live in Vermont, and they like recently being like 2013, purchased their first home. They've always like rented homes their entire life, but they purchased their first home, and it's like a really nice home that like it's like I'm really proud to call it my home. I didn't really like probably lived in that house for like a year on and off. They moved there like the year after I graduated. But like it was built in the 60s, and in the area of Vermont we're in, that's super rare. So this house, people come over. There's like a floating staircase in it, and there's like lots of exposed windows and stuff like that. It's very like Brady Bunch 60s, but also in more of like a retro futuristic type of way. It's really cool, and like I think that's probably the reason why I'm so proud of it, is because it's like, most of the houses, like I said, grow from ages like 11 and up. I've lived in the Northeast. I grew up in from ages until I was like 11. I was in like a suburb outside of Atlanta, Georgia, and then I moved up to the Northeast, and I've been there the entire time. And I just like don't dig it.
When did you start, really making music? You mentioned about being or involved in like a punk band. What did you kind of get your start in that way, or when did you really start producing and making music?
So like obviously like I'm just like a punk through and through. Growing up, I mean, to this day, like I always say, I don't really listen to fucking music at all. It's kind of unfortunate. I'm so absorbed in the music that I'm doing, and what really holds my attention and what I'm really truly invested in are podcasts. So I'm listening, and whenever I'm listening to stuff, I'm listening to podcasts. Like very rarely do I listen to music. I've been doing these live streams and everything, and like asking people for music recommendations, just like invariably top notch. So I've been listening to stuff slightly more, but I don't listen to a lot of music, and growing up I always felt like I didn't listen to like the right music or whatever. Like growing up I was like a scene kid. I grew up with, my brother's 4 years older than me, and I was born in 94. My brother's born in 89. I was really lucky that he just bought like a fucking Victory Records sampler one time and got into some other shit, and maybe just had some friends that might have been on some weird shit that just like turned him onto some stuff. Like I remember my brother was just like, I remember it was probably like 2002. I was probably like 7 or 8 years old, and my brother was just listening to fucking like At the Drive-In so loud. And I remember just hearing At the Drive-In as like this very, very young kid who, growing up in the South, I mainly listened to like Linkin Park and Korn. Which Korn is like, ooh man, Korn is my shit to this day. Like I love Jonathan Davis. I love everything about Korn. So that's what I was listening to. But then I heard like At the Drive-In, and it was like this weird avant-garde music. And it really like challenged me as a kid, especially because growing up in the South, my brother listened to like mainly just like hyphy rap from like the early 2000s in the South as like a young white boy. Growing up, and like, like most of the people that we grew up with were like Black or Hispanic. So my brother grew up saturated in that culture and everything. And so as a result, I kind of had a secondary, like, I was very exposed to it, but I never liked rap music. I always just like wanted Korn, and then like by extension all that stuff. And then we got older, and then it was like my brother was just listening to like Silverstein and like 65 Days of Static, and some just like some real like post-hardcore, kind of that like Hot Topic commercial emo. Hawthorne Heights. Aiden was a big one because Aiden is really cool and innovative because they did the whole like post-punk goth thing, but they marketed it to kids too young to get post-punk. You know what I mean? Like if I listen to like The Cure and then I listen to Aiden, I'd be like, this band isn't shit. But I was 11 years old and I was like, this is fucking crazy. And then when I was 18 or 19 or whatever, and I went through like my hipster phase and people were like, here's My Bloody Valentine and The Cure. Get to know it because it's all you're gonna fucking hear at college parties for the next eternity. And to be honest, I don't really like post-punk that much. So like, to me, Aiden was cool because it was like, it was post-punk, but with just like, they made no reservations about what they really were, which was just like Hot Topic, emo. We're going to get straight to the breakdown and we're going to say some angsty shit. But then, you know, also to say I didn't listen to electronic music isn't even accurate because so much of their album is just like, oh, here's like a trance break. It's like faux trance. There was this big electronic influence, and I think that's what really bred in me the like interest in contrast. It was like this real like rock and emo guitar riff with like hardcore drums, and then it would cut out and would be like real quick just like a techno breakdown with like house drums. Like I was like, that was really cool. I remember when I was really young too, a band that I wouldn't go on to appreciate until literally probably like February 2nd of 2020. Like I've probably been listening to this band for the past month, and before that I never really gave them the time of day, is fucking Atari Teenage Riot. The entire time I've been making music, people are like, oh, is Atari Teenage Riot like your favorite band? And I'm like, no, I don't actually know that band. And they're like, what? Listen to that band, you're gonna love them. And I'd be like, yeah, you know, it's like people telling me I should listen to it. I was like, fuck you, I know what I like. And then just like recently I just like listened to their album just like wearing headphones, taking a walk, and was like, oh, I've been doing myself a great disservice by not like visiting this earlier because this is like wild. And it also sounds, I remember I played it for my partner and she was like, if you played this for me and told me it was your music, I would believe you. The music you make sounds exactly like this. Like it sounds like you are like completely like emulating these people. You know, I am, but I'm just like emulating the artists that like Atari Teenage Riot inspired, I guess.
Definitely the gritty sort of techno feel. I definitely, you know, get that with your work, at least with the stuff, you know, on your Instagram now. This is very raw and just crazy, kind of zany. I have to ask, you know, what led to those ridiculous and somehow perfect MS Paint covers you make? Like, was that idea kind of derivative of just this idea of music a day, or?
So I mean, the reason why the songs I release every day are like so gritty and raw sounding are just because like the unromantic reality is that normally when I sit down to make a song, I have procrastinated the rest of the day. Either 11 o'clock p.m. and I have 1 hour to produce the song before midnight, or it's like 3 o'clock p.m. and I have to go to work in 1 hour, so I have 1 hour to produce the song. So it's always like all of the songs that I make on my fucking everydays, I'm just like literally having a panic attack the entire time. Just like smashing it out as fast as I can, not mixing. Sometimes I make them so late at night that I can't even play them through speakers, so I will start to finish from scratch, compose and release the entirety of a song just listening to it through like headphones, my car, or like listen to it through like my PA, and it's just like all you can hear is like the hi-hat, and I'm like, fuck. And that's what spawned the album. Was like there were all of these songs that I was like, these albums are so good and deserve more attention and everything. And so the album was me being like, okay, I'm gonna take like all of the songs that I made that I actually stand by, and I'm gonna like elaborate on. And first of all, the biggest thing on the album, some of the songs on my album are literally the same songs, Instagram, just remastered. Most of them I added additional parts, because most of the time too, you know, Instagram is like, recently I've been dabbling with like the Instagram TV or whatever, but that's just like not ideal. But Instagram forces me to do it in like a minute-long format, so I have to really like condense the song. And sometimes I'm like, fuck, I just want to elaborate on this or like give this the build-up it deserves. Sometimes like a drop or a payoff will kind of feel unrewarding because in the first like 13 seconds of the song. So like, yeah, there was that. But the MS Paint shit, I just, I started doing this on a whim. My partner was like, you should watch this video. And I watched this video about Beeple, and I was like, I'm going to do that starting today. So I went into the other room and I made a song, and then I didn't know what to do with it, and I knew that I wanted to put it on Instagram, so I just like downloaded this it's called InShot. I think it's like the first video editor that, I'm sure y'all have. Yeah, so I got InShot, and then I was like, I'm not gonna fucking put a watermark on this shit. I'm not a cuck, so I bought it, and I bought it for a year, and was like, all right, and buying this for a year, I guess I'm committing to uploading I'm going to at least try to stick out this idea for a year. And then I downloaded fucking InShot, and I was like, I just need any sort of image. So at first I had an idea. I kind of wanted to just stand in the same spot every day and take a photo of myself and do this like time-lapse evolution, and every single cover would just be a different photo of me. But then it's just like I did it at such drastically different times, and it was so inconsistent that the photos looked different. Okay, that's not going to work. So then I was like, I'm just going to upload whatever image. The whole thing was kind of like, fuck it, I'm not supposed to linger on this or think too much about it, so I'm just going to upload whatever image. But then there was like no cohesive aesthetic on my Instagram, which did kind of bother me, especially as I started to come into my own in terms of style. After like day 40 or 50, I also stopped sampling. So in the beginning, every song was just like a sample, and it was a lot more like lo-fi hip-hoppy, kind of like for like upbeat, like emo, trappy kind of stuff. Because I do like that stuff. As iconoclast and like cool and edgy and obscure as I want to seem, like lo-fi hip-hop is fucking amazing. And like I do want to emulate like certain elements of that, even though like right now I feel like it's like really uncool to like do that. The whole like people are like SoundCloud rap is played out and like lo-fi hip-hop is played out, and they're absolutely right, but so is like fucking every other music. If you can like emulate something in a way that's like fresh and interesting, then fucking do it. Because I think if you listen to any song on my Instagram, some of them you might listen to it and it might like evoke the sense of a lo-fi like study chill hip hop, but none of them actually sound like that. They all kind of have a weird undercurrent. The hi-hats and like 3/3 and it's like weird, or has like a delay effect on it, or maybe the kick has like is super swingy and it's like at time or something, or the sample is like glitched and doesn't quite work. Or a lot of stuff. I also love like dissonance. Like I love fucking Eastern music. Fucking Eastern music is so amazing, and the scales they use are so cool. And I don't know anything about music theory, but I just know that like dissonance is really cool, and to our ears, like to a Western ear, a lot of Eastern music sounds dissonant. Because of that, I take a lot of influence from it. I just started making those fucking MS Paint things at a certain point, because I was like doing the more punk shit, and I was like trying to emulate. All of them kind of are supposed to kind of look like that, like kind of like chain punk. It's kind of this chain punk like aesthetic that's kind of like retro. It's like 80s looking, but it's clearly made in 2020. It's like purely a digital release, but like the cover is literally just like a mock cassette format. I think it's so funny that like my Instagram is literally every MS Paint drawing is just like a mock cassette. It's like a mandala. At a certain point, I might even just like delete this Instagram and like scrub the internet of like this too. Just flexing a muscle right now. Honestly, I'm just trying to get better at like making shit. I didn't make music for a year before I started this project. And for the first like 2 months of this project, I fucking hated every song that I post straight up. I just fucking loathed it, and I thought it was so embarrassing. I was like hashtagging it and shit. And now I feel like actually very good. And you know, I've in this weird, bizarre way, I started sponsoring posts, and I've in just like a few months of sponsoring posts, I've kind of like accrued this. It's like a very meager but dedicated following of people. People have been like sending me fan art and like sending me these messages, sending me like poems they've written while listening to my music and like other shit like that. And it's like really, yeah, it's wild. I don't know. I'm playing my first set on Friday under this moniker, and I haven't played a show in over a year. It's gonna feel fucking great to perform again.
You know, while we're talking about like Eastern music with different scales,
yeah,
I did remember immediately trap remix of the like Arabic Nokia ringtone that's very I don't know, I get a big kick out of it. It's kind of stupid, but I enjoy it.
When you mention about hashtags, this kind of reminds me, like, I definitely see a lot of overlap in some of the stuff you do and Noah does, because Noah has consistently made posts that with just the most bizarre hashtags imaginable. It's just one of those things where it's like, hashtag by itself is already a strange concept, so why not just push it to its absurdity?
I don't know. There's almost something shameful, at least to my mind, about having to use hashtags. Like, it's just something that
I agree.
grin and bear.
Yeah,
like,
I
agree.
In a perfect world, I wouldn't put hashtags on posts, but
I absolutely agree. I feel whenever I hashtag things, I feel so insecure, which is funny because I never read other people's hashtags. People are going to read my hashtags and think I'm a fraud.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's like an insecurity that we probably have as artists.
When you're making something and you're passionate about it and you want to get it out there because you're passionate enough about the work that you've done, that you want to like develop an audience for it, and you want to get feedback on it, and you want to make more things and collaborate with people and all those sorts of things that you want to do creatively. There's certain barriers to entry, and some of those barriers to entry are to just make a fool out of yourself.
Yeah.
This quote unquote, like all these friggin' YouTube pages that are like, here's how your band can advertise their single. And it's just like, perhaps these methods will work, perhaps they won't, but I'm gonna suffer either way.
Right.
So you just gotta find the best way.
Real dollar signs are making those fucking YouTube videos. The trend we gotta get on is not trying to promote our music, but doing the YouTube videos where it's like, this is how you can promote your music. I got a comment on one of my let me look this shit up because it's actually fucking golden. I got a comment I check my email every day for notifications about a comment on my one of two YouTube videos. It was just clearly like a spam comment that was like written by a computer, but they like tried to spice it up, and they were like, and so I saw the thumbnail of this comment on my email address, and my heart was really warm. It was like, hey, like, you deserve more views. Like, oh my god, that's so nice. And then I like clicked on the email and read the remainder of the comment that was like, try using like Z Beats to advertise your music to an audience that is just waiting to hear it. You motherfucker. I wanted to like murder the computer. Like if I could snuff out an AI like Westworld style, I would definitely have done it in that moment.
That's a real frustrating thing when you think for a split second that you got some real human interaction going, and then it turns out to be a bot. But yeah, like,
and not even like a well-constructed bot.
Yeah. Especially like you'd think that if somebody do the script or whatever, that they could at least put some effort into the message that's being sent.
And it's like, hello, DietTeaOtherCola.
But it does circle back to that point. There is more money to be made in showing people or pretending to show people how to make money than in actually following the steps that a lot of these people say to follow. Like a good example is it might have been a year ago at this point. I got one of those classic ads from like, some 20-year-old guys that are like, we've been drop shipping on Amazon and blah, 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 but it's just not enough. Here's the next step that you have to take. And if you want to learn the next step, then you got to sign up for our seminar that we're going to be having later this evening, 7:00, limited spaces. You got to sign up now to reserve your space. So one day, I was like, listen, man, I'll bite. I'll sign up for your friggin' seminar, And so I did, and it was insane because they had a live chat going just to kind of verify, just to give that extra little, evidence that they're not just playing a video during their presentation, that they're actually reacting to people. And, man, I remember towards the end of it, first of all, the business model they were proposing people should do is you contact small businesses on get them to give you $1,000 to make a Facebook ad for them, not to put it up or to invest in it or to do whatever, but just to construct the advert. So basically, their advice is be such a good swindler that you can talk somebody into paying $1,000 for something that you could do in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, they were talking about, they're talking about they have a book out. Like the book is like $300. No book.
Oh yeah, it's worth it.
Like it's actually not about music. It's actually about the new world order, programming of the human consciousness. We kind of leave this seminar behind and kind of enter in like a whole kind of like it's kind of like a hardcore pro-lifer Trump spiel. There's definitely hardcore Scientologist and cult aspects. Yeah, exactly. Dude, that's wild. For a minute though, straight up, like high key, I was expecting it to be like, and then I signed up for the seminar, and it was genuinely one of the most enlightening things I've ever experienced. It was like insightful, poignant information that was really relevant. My Spotify statistics have been up in the months since. Just clearly.
Well, the live chat actually didn't seem to be mostly bots because most.
So is it just a bunch of people being like, "Cuck, Pog, fuck you, this is a scam, Pog."
No, I was expecting there'd be a lot of people who are like, this is stupid, but either they didn't bother to show up or they were trimmed. They would say something ridiculous like, so, considering the amount of money that the tips and tricks in this book could potentially make you if you work hard at it, which, I'm placing it over $100,000 a year easily. Considering that, would you say it's a fair price to be selling this book for $300? And the whole chat is just like, I may have to sell my wedding ring, bro, but
like I
will buy your book.
I'm gonna sell my fucking blood to read your.
I might have to forego my friggin' dialysis weekly dialysis.
Oh my God.
But I will buy your book.
Reminds me too of like these ads, because I don't use ad blocker anymore. I mean I do, but like on my phone obviously you don't ad blocker really isn't a thing unless you're clever, which I'm not. So
no, likewise.
Yeah, I get this. I get these ads. Like the first one is like obviously this one weird trick, this one weird fruit, girls in your area, that kind of stuff. But then there's a dark horse, and it is the reclusive millionaire who predicted the stock market crash of 2008, and he's got this major prediction. Click here to find out more. There's gonna be a
second housing bubble.
Yes. And then you go to it, and it's this video, this unskippable video, and he drags out. He keeps talking and talking. He keeps stalling you, so you keep watching the video.
The classic thing with those is, like, you click on the website to keep watching the video, and there's no bar to scroll back and forth of the video. If you want to get any sort of knowledge that's worth anything in life, you got to be willing to download the Tor browser. 5-hour video.
Download the Tor browser, invest in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Or you could always live the. I'm not sure if you're familiar with John McAfee. I think that's how you say his last name. He was living out of a compound in Belize, trying to synthesize pure, what was it, methamphetamines or something? I don't remember.
John McAfee is legendary. I think he's still running for president 2020.
Wait, what? Wait, okay, enlighten me on this person, y'all. I need more detail.
So John McAfee, I don't know if you know McAfee antivirus, but...
oh my God, wait. Okay, I'm Googling this right now.
Yeah, it's a crazy rabbit hole. So,
dude, I should have had McAfee antivirus on my. I use the same Dell Inspiron desktop that my parents bought me when I was like a freshman in high school. So I use like a 12-year-old. I'm running like Windows 7, and I got McAfee on here, baby. I got McAfee antivirus. So this is poignant. Maybe I'll vote. I know today was Super Tuesday, and I probably missed my opportunity, but
yeah.
Oh, he's a libertarian. That's sick, dude. I love libertarian.
He's like one of those libertarians that's just like, well, not even one of. He's the only one. Now that I think about it, he's the archetypal, just like he's off the wall. He's absolutely off the wall. So he had his antivirus software thing,
Yeah.
and he left his company, probably sold it off to something, dissociated himself from all that jazz, and he just started doing a lot of really strange things. I remember in the mid 2010, he said something about if Bitcoin didn't reach $1 million by 2020, he was going to cut off his penis and
Oh
eat
my
it.
god.
And I think he walked that back. I think he straight up walked that back. But
He's like, I'm gonna cut off my dick. I'm not gonna eat it.
yeah.
Yo, I'm reading here. His wealth peaked in 2007 at 100 million before his investments plummeted in the financial crisis of 2007. That's
Poor guy.
wild. Yeah, dude, poor guy. I mean, he's doing fine. He's doing better than all of us. He's 74 too,
right in
man.
the head, though.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
dude definitely has some like deep-seated psychological issues. He's also looking at him. He definitely has this like Gary Busey stare. Mad able to say or not, but this dude literally, he looks like he is like standing on top of the corpses of his whole like immediate family.
He's got an intense personality and like a very deep voice, almost a Morgan Freeman type voice, like a very authoritative but also soothing. There's like a lot of weird things that have happened in John McAfee's life, and most of them are escaping me right now. But if you just do like a little bit of a
Well, I can interject.
A search, a little bit of scavenging, you'll find some crazy.
Please interject. Please derail this topic of.
So what I understand was at some point in the late 2000s or early 2010s, he moved to, I guess, Belize, and he had a compound.
Reading that right now.
Yeah, and he was like I said, I guess making or trying to make some kind of amphetamine, and somehow he got busted. And there was this thing that he killed his neighbor, or maybe he was framed. You have no idea. And then I guess multiple people were out to kill him. Multiple people from the cartel were out to kill him. So he comes back to the United States. He gets involved with this lady who was a prostitute, and then I guess she tries to kill him at one point, but then she's also like, yeah, but I actually didn't want to kill you. I was actually, trying to tell you, like, they're trying to kill you. So he gets married to her, and now I guess he's, like, in Cuba.
Yeah, this dude sounds sick. He should start making music. That's fucking... I love the narrative that his, like, current wife was, like, an assassin turned good.
Yes.
Who was like, wait, I'm not trying to kill you. I'm trying to warn you of the assassin. Let me marry you and move to fucking Cuba.
Yeah.
Cuba. Nobody's gonna try to kill me in Cuba.
It's hard to tell because, he says a lot of stuff about how he's almost been killed, like, multiple times. And sometimes, he's probably
He's like mostly
lying.
by prostitutes.
Well, like, I don't know. I mean, he's the kind of guy who his delivery and demeanor and everything makes you think that perhaps there's an element of psychosis going on. But at the same time, his life does seem so insane. This could all potentially be totally true.
If this dude was a creative, he would just be like a beatnik. Like, this is all the same shit that, like, beatniks did. It was like,
you're right.
Oh, yeah,
You're right.
like, ran from the law and moved to, like, a fucking, like, foreign state that is, like, directly opposed. They're like, oh, let me just move to, like, the United States, like, main enemy, right?
Burroughs in Tangier, yeah.
Not that Cuba's been our main enemy in many years, but, yeah, it's just, like, the idea of, like, so counterculture to the fact. Like, didn't, like, I think William Burroughs, like, or not William Burroughs. Who fucking escaped from prison? Did he escape from prison?
I don't know. He might.
Oh no, I'm thinking of Timothy Leary. Timothy Leary escaped from prison.
Yeah,
and
Tim Leary
I think
escaped from prison.
Nixon was like, he's the most dangerous person in the world because he was like number one on the FBI's most wanted list. Maybe he wasn't the most dangerous person in the world. That was probably propagandized. motherfucker did escape from like high security and flee the country. Like he has, that's the thing. Like nobody, he's like, oh, I'm just trying to spread the love of psilocybin mushrooms and everything. And it's like, but I also have connections to leave the country and go to a foreign state sheltered by like a drug cartel immediately. Clearly you have some shady dealings, like regardless of how altruistic your like main goal seems, you're also like a dude who like has probably been directly involved in the murder of people.
Most likely. Man, I don't know. There are parts of Timothy Leary that make me think he's kind of a cool, upstanding dude, but at the same time, not. Like you said,
I think he's
so
a
many
nut.
weird, unexplained things. Well, I mean,
I think
dead
he's a
now.
nut, but I like
Rest in
him.
peace. Rest in peace.
Yeah,
my man.
no. Truly rest in peace. I think he was a visionary. I think he was probably not a very good person. He's kind of like Del Close. You know, he's like a big visionary who like innovated this like field. But not to say that Del Close is comparable to Timothy Leary, and that like Timothy Leary was like in the medical field. Del Close like revolutionized like improv comedy. But you know, they were both like these eccentric like counterculture dudes who were uncompromising to the point that it like had really negative impact on careers, and they died as a result of it. Truly, like they both died as a result of like overconsumption, basically.
I think John C. Lilly was another scientist who was like this.
Oh yeah.
It tends to be these guys who are like, they're more into psychedelics or that sort of thing. You know, they do, you know, they, for better or worse, you know, these things don't really they don't take the same toll on your health that like cocaine or heroin, that sort of thing would. And so, you know, they do sometimes have these crazy lives, and sometimes they die young, but a lot of the time they get really, really old. Burroughs, since we're talking about all these guys in conjunction, I guess, you know, he did a bunch of much harder drugs than it, but he ended up living to like 85.
And he was a hardcore dope fiend. He was like, I mean, most of Naked Lunch is written from the perspective of a person who's like nodding out.
Man.
A huge influence on his writing, definitely.
Right. No, that's definitely that's inescapable. And don't get me wrong, I don't like glorify William Burroughs, but he definitely, and I would be like lying, and it would be irresponsible rather for me to say that like he doesn't have like a direct influence on like the culture that we inhabit, for sure. Like
exactly. There's always the argument to be made about, you know, separating the artist from the art or whatever.
Yeah,
and,
that old chestnut. That old fucking chestnut. I think that there is no legs for that to stand. I gotta be honest, there's no legs for that to stand.
Well, here's my thing. Here's my piece on it. I think is that when it's somebody like William Burroughs who's been dead for 20 or 30 years, it is possible to sort of step back and evaluate their canon. Whereas when it's somebody who's, you know, still around and still has an effect on things, you don't necessarily, even if their stuff is good, you don't necessarily want to be supporting someone who is directly harming society in a really tangible way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a really good. That's
What at the end of the day, like, what kind of future do you see for yourself with doing this music? And I know you said you may scrap it, which I think would be a shame. But like in terms of performing, is there any chance we might see, an album release under like a label or that sort of thing? I don't know if you've done that in the past, but I guess just talk about, you and the future of the project.
like I said, I'm playing the first set as DietTeaOtherCola on Friday. The set list I'm pretty happy with. It's kind of like I made a lot of most of the transitions are made with like weird like haunted house soundtrack sounds, and then like old like vintage like Looney Tunes stock sounds.
Happy hardcore.
Yeah, precisely. This first live set that I'm doing, I'm just kind of playing all of my singles, like every song that I've released. I'm just playing my album with like the vocals already recorded, kind of like rapper style, I'm literally the album tracks and scream over them and go crazy.
Interesting you say that, because again, like Noah has been using this free DAW called LMMS.
I produced like 2 full albums on LMMS. Shit is rugged.
Yeah. The thing that struck me is like Noah has this sound that's like a cross between Frank Zappa and PC music and like some like noise group or something. Like it just has like all those qualities.
No. It's funny that you said PC music. I love Sophie.
Yeah.
And there's this Sophie element in your music. I listen from what I've listened to you too. I visited your SoundCloud. I think there might have been another avenue that I was listening to music.
Yeah, well, I have a link to a Bandcamp that hosts.
That's what it was, because it's not your Bandcamp, right? It's a label.
Yeah, it's a label.
Totally. I followed that link and I was like, okay, because I hit him. Noah had a lot more like his links were a lot more obvious. So I was like, okay, let's check these out. I listened to them. I was like, oh, word. And then I checked out you, and you had that link, and I went to it, and I was confused for a second. I was like, oh, this is like a label.
Yeah.
So I listened to it.
How that happened is basically my friend Connection 2000 who's in this chat. I met him through the R Vaporwave subreddit, and then we had been talking for some time. He's a really cool dude. And then it was just the thing of, he's like, hey, the label I release under is doing this thing for singles. If you have a track, I can hook you up. And I'm like, sure, and it was cool. But nobody bought the track, but it was cool. Well, one person bought it, so I take that back. But
that doesn't really matter ultimately anyways. What matters is like you got a label release, which is tight.
Yeah. So I just want to kind of ask, in closing, is there anything that you would like to shout out, either your page or your friend's stuff, before we wrap this up?
Let's get it, baby. DietTeaOtherCola, everything. Just Google that shit. You'll get my SoundCloud. From the SoundCloud, you can get everything else. All the links, if you're savvy, which anybody who has followed this Instagram to this point is, you'll get it and you'll rock on. And I'm eternally grateful for you and Noah and this podcast, The World Movers Place. Eternally grateful for any sort of platform that people hit me up for. You guys have been like eternally, you guys are dope.